Welcome to The Hero Maker. In this series, we follow Richard's appearances on other shows as he talks about how to grow, play, think, and live like a hero. Join him as he discusses thoughts, principles, and life lessons, all essential for anyone building their heroic brand. All that and more, only on The Hero Maker.
It's color psychology. So color psychology is one of those things that it's really, really difficult to know how to do well. Ideally speaking, you have a designer that you can bring in and be like, hey, this is my audience. Can you help me pick colors that are going to work well with that audience? But if you're doing this yourself, I like to go to something like colors.io and start playing around with color palettes. And there's just a couple of things that are, you can start looking into some color psychology stuff, but like luxury brands are going to tend to be more on the jewel tones, right? You're going to have the jewel tone reds and blues and dark greens and stuff like that. Your baby brands, right? If you're talking to moms or talking to children, you're going to be more in the pastels of the same colors, right? Your pinks and blues and your more pastel colors. If you're talking to men, you're going to end up in the more solid, vibrant colors, right? Your solid blues and your solid reds. They're very, very primary. If you're talking to women, you're going to end up more in the brighter jewel tones, right? Where you have the darker purples and the vibrant pinks and stuff like that. And it's not something that is super easy to just figure out. You have to know who your market is and who you're trying to talk to them. So like what I'll do is I'll go through a competitor list with my client when we sit down to actually do their branding. It's like, let's pull up all your competitors, and we'll go through and if we pull up 10 or 15 competitors, the first thing we'll do is we'll cut out all the ones that don't have good solid brand, right? And be like, we're not interested in people who aren't good at this. So we'll pick up all of the competitors that have good solid brands, pick 3 or 4 of them, and we'll lay out their color palettes and see what their primary colors are, right? And then we'll start going into something like the colors.io and dropping in one of the primary colors and clicking the little auto-generate button to see what kind of palettes come up that look good, and play with it that way. And so we'll do that. And generally speaking, the mistake that people make with color is the same mistake that people make with the typography, is they pick too many, right? They pick too many colors. So the easiest color palette to go with is something that's called a monochrome palette, where you pick a single color that's your primary action color. And so your primary action color, and then you have some form of black or some form of white, and grays and whatnot in between. And you build your site around the blacks and whites, and you use the color for any of your actions, right? So you're going to use the color for your, if you're on a print piece, it's going to be the phone number. If you're on the website, your links and your buttons and everything are all going to be in that primary action color. And if you want to make the color palette more complex, you might add a secondary color, and the secondary color would be used for design pieces, right? Things that aren't going to be interactive. But generally, you'll have a black or an off black, a white or an off white, a primary action color, and then a secondary like design color. And then you can, if you need to get more complex than that, you might have tints or shades of those couple of colors, right? We're like, hey, I actually need to have a little bit lighter version of this green when it's on a black background, or a little bit darker version when it's on a white background, or whatever. But I would, after you sort of get your color palette nailed down, ask your designer to put them into a little style guide for you. So you're like, hey, here's our, here's the black that we use, here's the white that we use, here's our primary action color, here's our primary design color, and here's a few tints and shades that are acceptable. And once you sort of get that into a little style guide, anytime you have a designer work on something for you, you can have it work within the confines of your color palette. And again, it's one of those things that gives you that unconscious trust signal when all of your stuff sort of fits together from a color perspective, and you're consistently using your colors to indicate action. You're training people subconsciously to know what is clickable and what's actionable and other things. You're building those unconscious trust signals. So anyways, that's my little tidbit on color and branding.
If you want to hear the rest of this discussion, please check out the link to the full episode in the description below.